So we're starting to see more and more mills and manufacturers on Instagram and doing collaborations like these. But why do you think it's important for the whole supply chain to be on social media? Could this give more power to the consumer in terms of pushing brands to adopt the sustainable technologies they see that mills might be showcasing there? Or could it influence designers to select fabrics they see on IG? Or I don't know, there's so many opportunities here. And Thomas, do you want to start again? I know we just ended with you, but do you want to
Yes.
take it away?
Yeah, I mean, it's so the reason we're seeing it, I think, is and Eda will support me here, is that, you know, even though you are a supply chain company, you have a brand. You know, you have a name, and you want people to recognize that name. So of course you need to have a voice, and social media is a must these days. I think, you know, there's no arguing there. So it makes sense to be there. The question then is, you know, creating something that's valuable, like we just talked about. So you know, you can't just be there for the sake of being there. You need to have something to offer. um, and and yeah, I mean, it also ties back with, you know, we talked so the question about giving more power to consumers, and you know, then showcasing what you do. It's I think that's where it can get, you know, you get into something where you talk very business to business to a consumer. And it might be, you know, that's, you know, like Bauta and Robin said earlier, you need to know your consumer, you need to talk to them, and tell them something they understand that they want to hear. So I think this is where it can get tricky, and yeah, we also, well, it ties in with the greenwashing part of the previous question as well. So you're limited on space, but and you're talking about something that's quite technical, and honestly, that a lot of consumers don't really care about. They just want to know, what does it do for me? So, yeah, it's tricky for sure. And but it is also, I think, important to recognize that you have a brand as a company, and eventually, if you can turn that into something consumers recognize, and that they, so imagine if you're a mill, for instance, wouldn't it be great if consumers were walking into stores around the world and saying, hey, I want denim from XYZ Mill, your name, Mill. You know, that is a brand, right? But the question is, you know, creating trustworthy and relevant content to put out on that channel. That is, and that's, yeah, that's
Right.
what we can help you with, all of us, I guess. So
Exactly. That's where you
yeah.
come in, for sure. Wouter, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I think Thomas already said quite a lot. I agree that you have to split it in two. You have the consumer side, and you also have the B2B side, of course. I think for the most mills are the most important still nowadays is the B2B side, to reach out to designers and product managers. So that's a total different approach, of course, when reaching out consumers, for example. Of course, the bigger mills are also setting up that the mill is becoming a sort of a brand, but that will take quite some time, I guess, that people are really going into the store and asking for a pair of denim jeans made by Candiani, for example. I think that will be the future. You see that also in the sportswear related business, of course, for years already, that people are buying a North Face jacket with a lining from Gore-Tex, for example. So the business is changing, and as a company or as a mill, I think you have to be, yeah, you have to split your strategy in two. So focused on the consumer, and also focusing on the B2B side.
I really love that you think it's the future, because I think so too. I really think that, you know, I found this technology so interesting, but I know I'm a geek, but you know, there's a average consumer browsing Instagram and they come across a laser video, for example. Everybody loves that stuff. They love watching the lasers cut through the jeans. But I think that, you know, they could start to see that technology more and more and start to be like, to their brands that they buy from, oh, I saw this company post this laser video. Are you using lasers, or are you still using stonewashing? I think that could definitely be the way of the future, for sure. Eda, do you have anything to add here from the mill perspective side too? I think you're on mute.
The concert was going on, so I took you all interview. No, I was actually, when Thomas was speaking, thinking of his first answer, like how social media actually needs to be social, and now we're also at the same point. I think it's really important in that sense, like you are trying to be visible, that's for sure, but you also are like, it is so special in a way that a mill, a factory, can actually humanly bond with someone from around the world who maybe is not really interested in denim. So this is giving us opportunities like this. So in those cases, I think it has a really valuable side. I think more and more mills need to be there. There's a reason they're there. First of all, like there is actually so much effort going on at the behind, like at the back scene of how our clothes are produced. And when putting so much effort and energy and all that money and time and all those people in this time, I think it's nonsense if you don't share this information. Like we actually have to share all this information. And I feel kind of it's a responsibility to use your voice to share the information and be honest about what's going on. Like I wouldn't say we're at this point where a designer can pick a fabric from looking at Instagram, but for example, with the case we had with you, like when you were in Çorlu and when we were doing the Women in Denim project, like we were quite active with all the experiences we had with all of you. And that time actually showing like all the process from picking the fabric and then the finished products, we were always live on Instagram. And like we actually had not one or two but multiple requests from our customers, like I want to, like this fabric reacted really well to laser, so I want to try that on, or that was a really nice tie-dye, so I want to see that acrylic fabric. Like I don't think we're going to come to a point where all the collection is made from Instagram, but it is affecting how we think, and it's kind of giving inspiration. And maybe it's the same fabric you already use, but you see it from a different angle, and all these things are, I think, yeah, really inspirational.
Yeah, that's really cool. That I'm glad there was some results for you there. Because I think from a designer's perspective, if you're browsing, Sority's Instagram and you saw that, I'd be like, oh, great, I love that fabric. And maybe at Kingpins next time I'd go to your booth and ask to see it or something like that. So I think that is the way of the future too. Matthew, oh sorry, Ada, do you have anything to add?
I was just gonna add some really small thing. Like I think as we were just talking, it shouldn't be a platform where you just, show off about yourself. It should be really sharing, like there should be a balance. It should be informative. You should be talking about what you do and the technical side, but there's also the human side. There's also the experiences. So I think it should all be in a balance, and then, you simply connect with people who feel the same way.
Yeah, and how you're saying, mentioning kind of the disconnect of consumers not knowing all the hard work that you do at the mills, and that's honestly why I started Simply Suzette, is because I'm so impressed by all of the hard work that mills and manufacturers do, and I'm so dumbfounded that consumers have no idea. So I think it's so important for them to be for mills and manufacturers to be communicating what they're doing. Matthew, do you have anything to add to this?
Something about, consumer expectations are getting higher and higher, I think, and there's certainly an expectation for transparency in like the manufacturing process, like that trail that goes from like the designer through to the clothing landing on the shelves. And that used to be a burden that was taken care of by the brands alone. But now the brands themselves would keep where they were manufactured a secret, whether that was because they were ashamed of how they were being manufactured, to say that was the majority of it, or they didn't want other people stepping in and taking the space away from them. Now the brands are turning to these mills to help tell this green story, or help say how sustainable they are, help them to communicate with their end consumers. So that part of transparency is an essential role that the social media is able to play. It's that it's a chicken and egg thing. It's like that tool grew up alongside this customer expectation, and it just rolls over. And so that's going to become much more essential in the future, I think.
Definitely. And Robin?
I think it's very important that the whole supply chain is active on social media, because it makes the end consumer conscious. So I think that in the basic, most people are interested in the clothes they are wearing. Not so super interested that they are looking on Wikipedia to check all the ins and the outs, but I think they are interested when it's available on social media where they already are. So basically you're in a restaurant and the information is served on your plate and you're looking at it and you think, oh, this is quite interesting. And I remember that when I first go to a manufacturer, even I was surprised about all the steps that needed to be taken to make a jeans. Like I was spending a lot of time of Instagram and I am following all the major mills, but still it was surprising that it took so many handwork to make a pair of jeans. So I think this is also, how do you say it, a nice job for manufacturers to find a way to communicate really how it is to make a pair of jeans and really how much effort it takes. So I think when you provide all the information to a consumer, you give them a choice, because when you don't know, you don't have a choice. But when you know the difference between cheap denim and rich or good denim, however you will call it, you give them a fair choice. And I think in the end, that will lead to a shift in the market, because in the end, I believe that mankind will support each other when they know.
Yeah, I really love that. I do think so. From everything that was just said, I think a large factor is the disconnect that from the industry between the consumer. And it is important for the mills and manufacturers to be communicating all the work that they're doing.